Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the MFSA contact session where we will be specifically focusing on advocacy. And this is a digital contact session. Usually we used to do it live, but due to COVID-19, we are doing all of our sessions digitally, but it also makes it easier for you to watch it again. So let's go to the next slide. I want to make a couple of announcements, and I also want to welcome all of you and say thank you for joining us today and taking the time out of your busy schedules to listen to what we have to share. So with regards to the announcements, I just want to say this is the next upcoming contact session digital sessions on 21 October, SACRA digital session, where they will be talking about data. And on the 10th of November, we've got a compliance legislation and regulation session. Then we will continue with our digital compliance sessions. On the 16th of September, we will focus on affordability. And also on the 18th of November, we will focus on debt counseling. So make sure that you RSVP for those sessions as well. Please also diarize the MFSA annual general meeting to be held on the 14th of October at 10 o'clock. So as you can see, we are planning a number of digital sessions for you as well to make sure that you are updated. This is just our program for the day. First, we will have a look at a demo from ACPAS with Chris de Wet. Then Pakim Pashlele, our chairperson, will do a presentation, followed by a presentation from Henny Pereira. Then we will look at a new service provider, Moneyphone, their video and a demo that they will do. Then we will play a lovely game. You know, we like to keep it exciting. Then we will look at a presentation from TransUnion, and then we will listen to presentations from Ethicor focusing on advocacy and information on advocacy, why we do advocacy, what we do in advocacy, and what your role is in advocacy. We will have a question and answer session where you can also, during the presentations, ask your questions and we will get to them. Our sponsors for all of our sessions are, so it's ACPAS, ALPS, BidMe, Experian, Kepler, Moneyphone, Micromax, NewPay and Delta, SureCard, Sure Systems, TransUnion, and Universal. And we really want to thank our sponsors for their support. Without them, this definitely would not have been possible. I also think we changed the format a bit, so we are giving our sponsors the opportunity to have interaction with our members on our platform. So up next, let's have a look at our ACPAS video.
Hey, are you coming along? Breathe in the love, open up your heart. And hey, are you coming on down? Bring in the light, open up your arms. And hey, are you coming along? Breathe in the love, open up your heart. And hey, are you coming on down? Bring in the light, open up your arms. Hey, hey, are you coming along? Are you coming along? Are you coming along? Hey, hey, are you coming along? Are you coming along? Are you coming along? Hey, are you coming along? Are you coming along? Are you coming along? Hey, hey, are you coming along? 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 Hey, are you coming along? Step to the beat, dance to the drums. Hey, are you coming on down? Let loose your feet, soak up the summer. Hey, are you coming along? Turn up the night, breathe in the sound. Hey, hey, are you coming on down? Lift up the drink up the sun. Hey, hey, are you coming along? Are you coming along? Are you coming along? Hey, hey, are you coming along? Are you coming along? Are you coming along? Hey, are you coming along? Are you coming along? Are you coming along? Hey, hey, are you coming along? Are you coming along? Are you coming along?
Great. Thank you so much for the video. Up next, I will be welcoming Chris de Wet onto the platform, and he will be doing a presentation on their product. Welcome, Chris.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. And can you hear me, Juliani?
Yes, we can hear you, Chris.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you for the opportunity for us to, demo our product today. I think, the MFSA is doing a great, service to all the service providers as well as the lenders by, facilitating these facilitating these MFSA conferences, and I wanted to say thank you for everything. Okay, guys, I'm going to quickly just give you a quick slide presentation. I'm going to share my screen with you, and then I'll take you through what we're actually offering the industry in terms of a lending solution. So, firstly, ACPAS has been around for at least 10 years, maybe a little bit more, closer to 15 years, where we have been supplying the market with an online, a web-based, cloud-based solution for online lenders as well as your traditional branch-based lenders. We're integrated with all our service providers, and I think we're providing a solution in the online space where we've found a place where our niche market has really been sitting. At the present moment, I think there's a big push towards this, and we've been doing this for quite some time. So I think the risk mitigation tools and the services that we offer in terms of an API integration into all our services is really something that we take pride in. Okay, so if you have a look at my screen, you can see a little bit of what we offer. I mean, this is just a quick PowerPoint presentation, and as you obviously see, we develop and we have a full development, design and development integration into our loan management software, which is real-time integrations as well for all your transactions, as well as SMSs, credit checks, whatever. So at the beginning of an online application, you would see that the client obviously enters the ID number, where we put in a mitigation tool, a pre-screening, where the client will obviously get a pass or a fail answer on his or her ID number. Should they have failed, it will give them an indication that they have failed and they should come back and try at a later stage. Should they pass, they go on to the application process. Now, the application process obviously asks for the necessary information.
Sorry, Chris.
Yes.
Sorry, Chris, I just want to interrupt you. We are not seeing your screen, so it's not sharing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me have a look at this quickly.
Let's see. Okay, maybe start from the top. Good.
Okay, great.
Right.
Sorry, didn't see that. Perfect. All right, so let's go to the next slide. All right, so here's obviously where the client puts in their ID number. As an online application would work, they'd obviously choose the amount of money they want over a period of time that they want to repay that amount. And obviously the look and feel to the design of the website will depend on obviously the client itself and how they would like to advertise to the market exactly what they are offering and what their services are. Once they've passed that, they go over through to the application process, where they would obviously offer a complete underwriting process where the client can input the necessary information as well as upload documentation into the process. You can then, this is a completely paperless solution where the documentation will be stored at the back of the website, and you can access it at any point in order for you to be able to see exactly what information the client has submitted so that you can do a complete vetting process of the client. Once all the information is put through the vetting process or the application process, it will write into the ACPAS itself, where you can then go through the client's information and make an informed decision, obviously, if that client can afford the credit or not. Should they obviously go through that, the client will then, you will then obviously set up the debit order from their account, or the debit check into one, where the client will get an SMS, obviously prompting them to go and accept the mandate through the desired platform that they're obviously going to use. You will get a direct response from the platform, and it will tell you whether the client has accepted that transaction or not. And he will get an opportunity to sign his credit agreement in an online signature solution that we've developed for our platform. This will then save with a date and a timestamp, in order for the client, or in order for you to obviously be compliant at the end of the day. Now, the entire process for us is completely integrated into all the services, and throughout the process of the client doing the application, they will receive SMSs and email communication. These are just some of a few of the features, obviously, that we're offering the industry at the present moment. In terms of an online lending solution, you know, it's been a long time coming that we're going into this digital format now, and I think what we've already supplied the industry is, you know, something that I think is a little bit above the rest. So if you guys are looking to get hold of me, here's my details. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm available anytime during the week for you guys to get hold of me if you would like to have you know, a demo. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. Yes, so if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact Chris directly. Yes, thank you for the information, Chris. ACPAS has been an associate member of MFSA for quite a while, so please make sure you make use of them. Great. Up next, we will have a presentation from our chairperson, Mr. Paki Mpashlele. He's the founder of Mafuri. He worked in corporate banking, national treasury. He did lecturing and teaching and focusing on consulting and developing. And he's got a master's in finance and a postgraduate degree in economics. And he's also got a degree in psychology and education. So I would like to welcome Paki onto the stage. And thank you very much for your time today, Paki, and for addressing our delegates. Okay.
Thank you, Leonie. And the delegates and service providers. Today is an important day for us because it is now the time where we come back to our members and present the strategy that MFSA has been going through for the past 2 years in terms of the engagement and looking at the needs, requirements, and the challenges of our members. From the board side, the question is, what is the strategy that has been using? There have been four ways of tackling the issues where our members' needs are to be addressed. The first would be, obviously, we've got the regulator, we've got government, we've got laws, policies that are affecting our members. Now, when the challenges come that affect the business and the livelihood of our members, what do? There are 4 options that are available. It's either we fight with people that are making life difficult for our businesses, our lives, and our livelihood. And or you go the legal route, or you go lobbying, or you go advocacy. These are the type of 4 options that we have. Let's start with fighting. If you fight, it means the stronger one will always win. Now you need to be sure that you are the stronger one when you go for that. Yes, but in this case, we find you are fighting the government, the regulator, and so on. Physically, I'm not sure if we're all physically ready for that. The other way, which is a constitutional right, we can go the legal route. It's our constitution. If we don't agree, we go to court. But even there, when you go to court, you need to convince the judge or the magistrate that your argument is superior and is within the prescript of law. And then the judge will take out an order and then come up with a solution. A solution meaning what is the right way forward. So it means the decision will be taken by somebody else and not between the two parties. Now let's get to what they call now lobbying, where we go to the decision makers and put our point across, try to convince them that we are right and somebody is not right in that what they are doing, and then we change it. Advocacy is more of above the line, where you talk about it and you market it and so on. It's like an army. You can have a strong army, but you need a good propaganda machine behind you. Another army can be smaller, shorter, less equipment, but with a good propaganda behind it, it might win. So advocacy is very important in whatever thing that we are doing as a MFSA. The legal route should always, like we said, the last option is an expensive one. And also the outcomes are not necessarily guaranteed. Now we are lucky today because we have got Ethico that has been a service provider in this space. Now coming to the practical part of it. Sometimes when I sit with our members and so on, we always forget where we come from. what behind the scenes, what you call representation now, because we have gone beyond lobbying, we are now represented, which our CEO will go through very shortly. A good example, initiation fee. When the cut and pin was being taken out, saying it is illegal to keep an ID and cut and pin, it was MLA at that time. What would have happened? Our industry would have been gone. Our members would not be here today because the way of collecting money was out of the window. There would be no ADO, there would be no NADO. So it is through that part of talking to the decision makers, telling them they are not loan sharks, telling them they're an industry, telling them that we have got a code of conduct, that by just removing cut and pin without something that will replace it, our members would be worse off. That's just an example. And people like Henny Ferreira, Mr. Franz Pale, went to Parliament to convince politicians that they should not just throw out cut and pin without replacing it. Now we've got NADO and ADO. Another thing with at the same time, things like initiation fee. We forget that banks who didn't have the monthly fees that we have now, without that type of representation at the right time, lobbying, advocacy, would never have them. So these are just examples of. Now coming to what is happening today, our CEO, Henny Ferreira, will talk about it. There's a new body that is coming called Payment Industry Body. People that are putting it together, Henny is one of the 10 people that are putting this body together. Now we have been represented also. Thanks very much to David Huang from Lizazzi Finance. You'll be representing Microfinance Association there, representing our members, so that when the new rules of the game come in the payment industry, we are part of the people that are crafting it. They don't craft it and then we come after. So we'll be part of the team that is putting the new way of doing payment system going forward, what I call the constitution of payment. So this is one of the victories that representation, lobbying, advocacy in talking about. We did not get a seat there through the lawyers or through the judges. So this is one of the things that I'm mentioning going forward. So I look forward, Henny, Leonie, looking forward to the day and our members. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Parky. We really appreciate your wise words. And I think the importance of advocacy was just definitely highlighted by you and the difference that advocacy makes. So I think sometimes we don't realize the importance of advocacy, but if you point it out and we see what difference it makes, we know why it is so important. But up next, Henny will be presenting more on that. Henny is the CEO of MFSA and he's also the chairperson of the PSSF. He's got an honors degree in sociology. He's got an MBA. He also studied the Boulder program in microfinance in the USA. And he also did a program in strategic leadership for microfinance at Harvard. So thank you, Henny. You're up next.
Hey. I'm battling with the technology, Leonie. I was hoping it's going to be able to control it. Can we take the screen off? Move to the next one. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I ask Sinead, we just go back to where we started, to the very first slide. I think it's important. There we are. Now, just after that one. There we are. Next one. No, one back. There we are. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity. And I need to start off by saying a great word of appreciation for the members who are here in this room today. The people in the background who's doing the slog work, and also a great word of appreciation to our chairman, who's really playing a very strong role in this organization. 25 years, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very long time. And just to add to our discussion today, I think it's important that we actually give ourselves a digital word of a round of applause for what we've done. I've coined the talk, the puzzle changes, and there's a lot of subtleties in that. And it is a puzzling environment where we operate in, and I'm so glad I'm on the top end. I have Parky and at the back end Ethico to talk about that. But you will also know that this is a world which is changing very, very rapidly. And if you think back about what has been happening since 1996 up to this year, then if you were static, you probably would have been dead. So the puzzle changes, and I've put out 3 provocative questions, which I will not answer fully today. It's why, how, and so what. And I really think that as an organization which doesn't sell widgets or car tires or make coffees or brew beer, why have we been able to be around for 25 years? And you need to understand things in a very, very definite context. The one context is that South Africa, the country which we are all part of, is diverse, it's dynamic, and it's complex. We are not alone in that. If you go around the world, you will find this in many places where things are even more complex and more dynamic. But it is not a one-size-fits-all simple environment. We are, as micro-lenders and micro-financiers and members of the MFSA, we are part of a system. And I'm going to define us in a couple of things. We are not lone wolves. We don't do quick fixes, and we avoid knee-jerk reactions, because none of this works within a system. And I'm going to just briefly talk to you about where do we believe we as members of the MFSA with regards to advocacy representation fit in the system. First and foremost, we are members of SA Incorporated. We are members of the South African financial system, which is a relatively large system within the context of Africa. We are in financial services. Financial services brings its own package of issues, and more so after the collapse in 2008 and the bubbles which we've seen. The credit market, credit is controversial, but we are more part of the formal credit market, and I emphasize formal. And from an MFSA perspective, our work and the way we look at the world is at the unsecured short term. But we are part of, and I go again, SA Incorporated, financial services, credit, the formal market, and down to where you do business. And this is critical in terms of the way we think and do our work, that you assimilate this concept. Now, in this table, and this is just some of the players I'm going to play, and I'm going to take a couple of perspectives on this. The players in the system, politicians are there. The bureaucrats are there. Regulators, credit providers, and credit providers is a huge range of people. The public broadly, the media, consumers, movements, and even the international community. I don't have the time to go into examples of each and every one of these, but I can state to you categorically that all of these categories, in one way or another, interact or impact on your business wherever you are in South Africa, whether you are digital or whether you are bricks and mortar. It is important then, members, that we connect some of the dots. First of all, people. People, and I'm going to get back to that, is crucial in what we do. Institutions are crucial. Many institutions, from the Concord to Parliament down to your business in Kuruman, and interest. We have different interests, and all of us have different interests, and those things ultimately connect. And in this lies our challenge and lies our opportunities, and where we engage and come into the system. Now, a couple of statements which I make, and people sometimes get a little bit worked up on these ones. The one statement we make, and I'm going to read, and they, in our minds, connect. We say, if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. Members say to me, Henny, just forget about the politics and help us to do better business. Politics is too important to leave to politicians because political decisions and political characters impact on our business. And we'll get back to that. We also have two other sayings. That is, keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. When we sit around tables, we often sit with people who have absolutely opposite views. And then in a strange way, and I'm currently going through a process where this is manifesting, people who sometimes go for us and go for the organization, they have people coming for them, and it actually becomes quite a messy place. And all of this, which is playing out here, and which is said here in a very strange way, connect and is relevant in our decision making. So when we as MFSA sit at the table and the various tables, and there are very many pieces on the table as per the graphic, we often sit with the competition. Is that competition banks, or is it the competition in that two members actually have to sit at the table, but they compete for the same clients? Politicians are almost always in the room, directly and indirectly. We have bureaucrats, we have enforcers, regulators, policymakers, social influencers, and credit providers. There is always a range of people at the table. And I share this with you so that you get the sense that nobody can just have his way. And you need to prepare yourself for an environment that works like this. I've brought in 4 pieces of change which is playing out now. If you think back to the chairman's elegant introduction of the days of card and PIN and things that happened there and since then, we are constantly seeing policies being reviewed, revisited. We are in the process as we speak where several pieces of legislation is in the mill. And as we sit here, 2 pieces of regulation which has a direct impact on our members are being reviewed, and we have either submitted or in the process of making submissions to that degree. And then the way in which things are getting implemented is also changing. The mention of the PIB and the participation of David and myself there, the process was run yesterday with 250 odd people in the room, digitally, facilitated by PwC using the highest level of technology. And the SARB actually became very stern. This is not going to take months, guys. It needs to be ready by December, which is a huge change, which impacts on the way we do business and the way we can respond to the market. The topics which are constantly being reworked, and I am not going to claim that this is the full list, is compliance. I think if you ask Leonie what takes most time, and therefore also the character of our contact sessions, compliance, both at NCR and also at SARB level, but also other areas. Secondly, the treatment of data. Chris's presentation and the video once again highlighted the role of data and the treatment thereof. Consumer protection will constantly be upfront in South Africa, given the demographics of this country. Staff development. In this world, therefore Leonie sits on the bank sector board. In this world, if you don't develop your staff, your organization will, I actually want to say, quite quickly just die. Pricing is up for grabs as we speak, and the payments industry, with regards to the world where we've come from, where we've moved from card and PIN, cash, into EDO, into debit check, rapid payments coming and QR scans coming, and that review of that process is going to continue, and you need to be at the table to influence where that goes. Our relationships as an association is multifaceted. I say members. Can we just mute that person, please?
Yes, sorry.
We say our key relationships are members. And I'm going to put a bit of face to this in a moment. We work very closely with other associations. I'll show them to you. We have to work with regulators. We have to work with government departments. We have to work into the political domain one way or another. We are in the public eye. Civil society and movements are key impactors on in our area, and also the media. Now, it looks like if you start talking about the political domain, public in general, civil society and the media, that these things are nebulous and gray. The fact is they are extremely influential. I noticed in Chris's video from ACPAS that they spoke about being paperless. That is the result of a movement which is concerned about the planet and the ecological issues in this country. And you can almost not be in a world where you are digital. Paper doesn't fly in the same way it used to. That's one example. Movements have a very strong influence with regards to consumer protection. In South Africa and some of the boardrooms where we sit, the Black Sash is a very prominent voice in that regard, and so is the MFSA. So we can also carry on with issues of equality in terms of race and gender, access to education, all things which as a South African you are very aware of and which impacts on what we do. I just posed this slide to say to you that at the end of the day, this is how we used to get together. This is the things we do. And ultimately, the impact and influence of members is crucial. I also want to say to you that the relationships we have in the environment is highly affected and impacted, and part of the stakeholder management we need to do in terms of our board and our ExCo, which I've just shown there, as well as our board. And ladies and gentlemen, the changes and the developments and the work and the focus of this board is a reflection of what we as an association at the advocacy level need to manage and do in conjunction with you as members. I've made a punch list of places where we have relationships. I've been rather deliberate in just punching them out so that you can get a sense of what is it that keeps us busy and keeps us awake at night and probably sometimes even having work on weekends. We have relationships with the NCR. I'm going to be so open as saying that earlier this year, the NCR ExCo, full ExCo, took the time out and they engaged with our board, our full board. As recently as last week, Leonie and myself met with the ExCo of the NCR to talk about operational issues. On top of that, Leonie mostly in constant and direct contact with the NCR, dealing with issues pertaining to you as members. And guys, we don't do these things publicly. We obviously are extremely sensitive when we do this. The South African Reserve Bank is a major regulator in this country, and by nature of the work we do, virtually in daily contact with key decision makers at this stage, mostly around areas of consumer protection in a matter, but mostly payments. We serve on the Payments Council in the Reserve Bank. The payments industry body was yesterday publicly kicked off. Made mention of Mr. Wang, who represents us there. And I am personally part of the design team as to how we do that together with 10 other people. And I see these things with you from a position of humility. It's a privilege to be at that table, but also a massive, massive responsibility. We have a relationship with the Financial Conduct Authority, with the Payments Association, We are prominent in the Payment System Stakeholder Forum. There also, David represents us, and I'm chairing that body. We are in close informal contact with BankServe, which is a massive system operator, which at the end of the day plays a key role in making sure transactions flow. We are in relationships with the DTI, the National Treasury, the Credit Ombud. We in fact meeting with him again tomorrow. The Banking Ombud. He only serves on the Bank CETA board and has done so for a while and doing so with distinction. We have relationships with other associations like the clothing retailers as recently as last night, the Credit Bureau Association, where the credit bureaus are members, the Financial Services Transformation Council, the Credit Industry Forum, NISC, the Debt Counseling Rule System, the Banking Association, the Credit Risk Association, the Debt Collectors, the Debt Counselors Association, the Direct Marketing Association, as early and as recent as about an hour ago, because there's a matter which overlaps, and also with the Development Microfinance Association, the Large Non-Bank Lenders Association, who yesterday in their member byport was in the Supreme Court of Appeal with regards to the law clinic matter, and we exchange information on these matters directly, and Arthur Schluby exchanged that information with me. ASISA, which is one of the biggest associations in this country, but we are bound by the hip because of payments challenges, and then we are in the process of also drawing up, following the previous workshop, a memorandum of understanding with the National Housing Finance Corporation. So, ladies and gentlemen, with all of that in the background, with real relationships where we are working mostly off the radar, from the work we do, we also have seen a massive change in personnel. Now, why do I say that? The moment the CEO changes at any organization, things change. We have seen in the last year changes at the CEO at Bank CETA, the Credit Ombud, the Banking Association, the Payments Association, BankServe, just to mention 5 from the top of my head. On top of that, ladies and gentlemen, we need to be sensitive to the fact that personalities are and have changed. The impact of COVID and the way we have to work and behave has had massive impact on all of us. And it's changed the way people perceive the world. It's impacting on the agendas that's being driven, right from a political level, right down to how you run your business. You are faced with the decision to digitalize or to stay in bricks and mortar, to change your products from a 30-day product to a 6-month product, I don't know. And the priorities following and in the wake of COVID and the social unrest, which is being driven by people, it continues to change. That impacts on how we do our work. The hot topics at the moment on our table, and you may want to wish to add 1 or 2 or say these things aren't important. From my perspective, these things are critical. And I could substantiate if need be. First of all, the review of the credit life process is going on as we speak. I had a discussion as recently as last night with some of the legal people who have to help us draw papers there so that the relationship is very clear. Rates and fees, there is a review going on as we speak. Debt intervention has effectively been signed off by the President, but there has been no implementation, so you can't take your eye off that. Payments, specifically in your world, the introduction and implementation of debit check, which has been fragmented in some areas, and in which the Reserve Bank is not going to do a 180. They are going to push this through, and we are negotiating how do we do the implementation. Data, I'm not going to say anything more. Leonie's day is dominated by compliance processes, and then we need to understand that the financial inclusion, given the history of South Africa, given the way the society is playing out, the financial inclusion discussion is developing to a financial deepening discussion. The transformation of society and the landscape is not complete. It will continue. And in my view, I believe training is one of the most important things we can do. And I need to say that I'm a little bit perturbed in that area. There is great programs being offered by BankSeater, especially in terms of international and high-level strategic learnings, which members are not taking up. I'm not always sure about the reasons, but the training I've enjoyed at Harvard and Boulder and other places was courtesy of the BankSeater, and it changed my life. The future transformation is not going to go away. Ethicor will certainly pick up on that. Financial inclusion, I think this time next year, the discussion will be financial deepening. It's not just about having a bank account. It's about having access to products which is relevant to yourself. The consumer will be key. The consumer is also a voter. Make peace with that and understand that the injury to the consumer has got political ramifications, and you need to navigate your way through that. We will have to work with many people. Therefore, that extensive list is relevant. Partnerships will be more part of the future. And if you are not in partnerships, you're going to find yourselves on an island. And then finally, this is almost so logical and so obvious that I don't want to say it, but the digitalization process is forced on our community. It's forced on our environment. It enables swift communication from any level to many people. So if you as ABC Finance in KMUS treat a customer badly, the message goes viral, but the converse is also true. If you do a good job, it works back into your favor. And this process, which plays into the modernization of the financial services system, continues to impact on the messages we have to manage and we have to drive, sitting in the MFSA side. How do we go about all of this? I want to say to you, it starts off that we have to listen. The hours that is spent with the team and the staff, board members, myself, Leonie, in hearing what people are experiencing and what they expect is critical. You cannot be deaf and think that you will be able to position yourself as an association in terms of the road going forward. And how do we do this? We talk, we meet, digitally and otherwise. We debate. In all of these relationships, there's a lot of tension. We negotiate. We ask questions and we have to answer hard questions. We strategize, especially at board and exco level and staff level. We engage, like we do here today, but we engage on a wide spectrum. We lobby because we stand for the unsecured short-term area primarily. We're your voice where you can't be in these forums. Yes, and we do surveys as part of the hearing. And yes, it's one line, we make submissions. That's a crucial part of our lives. And daily, we live and learn. As I sit here and I speak to you, we certainly don't have all the answers. To members, I want to say that the global business environment is challenging. Globally, it's tough. We are in the wake of a pandemic, which doesn't say it's gone. And it's a brave person who's going to make a prediction how this is going to play out. I want to make the point again that social movements are powerful. Now, if I'm talking about social movements, I'm not just talking about, let's say, the Greenpeace movement or Black Lives Matter. in your own local area. Therefore, the many strikes and protest actions we have in South Africa, they are social movements. And you need to, from where you sit, your contribution to our advocacy is how you engage with your local communities at client level and at social levels, at schools, sports events, churches, etc. And the digitalization is an irreversible reality, and the work that our service providers are doing in that regard and the pressures on us is critical. So what? Guys, 25 years in the modern South Africa, we've been running parallel with democracy in the way it is out there. And we have never received money from the state. We have worked with the state. And all of the businesses which are represented in this room today had their birth in this new era. So those who was exceptionally pessimistic and negative 25 years ago, there were those who've gone out and they've done things. And one of the primary things you've done is to organize yourself into an association. I'm going to step away from the text for a moment. In the PIB meeting yesterday, the FinTech movement is not organized and they are hardly being heard. So the fact that you're organized is crucial. The sustainability of your business and association is not a single once-off event. The road ahead will be intense as the one where we have traveled. We are all in the same boat. You can reason and debate with yourself, but ultimately we're in the same country, in the same sector, competing under the same rules, under the same challenges. From an association's point of view, we need all hands on deck, and every piece matters. Your conduct in your shop. We have a member in Kimberley who's been in the game, I think, 23 years, with a book that's performed at 98% plus, with repeat business all the time. Those stories are critical stories and is critical in terms of us being able to go forward. You as members are key pieces in the puzzle. You are the cold face. If consumers don't like the way you treat them, they will go away, either to your competition or to the banks or underground. And guys, you are the real ambassadors. And the fact that we are able to move into the boardrooms and sit in so-called high places and influence that is a direct factor of your contribution. Because at the end of the day, members are the association and the association is the members. And I'm saying, make friends in good times, you will need them in tough times. And certainly that has been our experience. And the fact that so many of you are around and standing is a direct outflow of the investment you've made into your business and into the industry, and enabled us to package that, to take that forward and put it out in the right place. There will be more changes coming, and I am very comfortable that we can jointly walk the road. On that note, thank you, Leonie, for the opportunity. Thank you for the members. I know there's a question and answer session afterwards. We will engage at that point in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henny. I think that was very informative. And like Henny said, we will have a question and answer session a little bit later. Up next, we are going to look at one of our service providers' videos, Moneyphone.
Moneyphone is a Dutch fintech company that offers to financial institutions a cloud-based digital origination solution to fast-track loan applications and improve operational efficiency. This way, borrowers get their funds faster and have a better customer experience. Moneyphone's platform is a truly global solution that can be personalized and translated to different languages. Our digital loan origination solution consists of 3 main modules: an online loan application available as self-service and for field officers assisting borrowers in remote areas. A loan management portal which helps to process loans on a fast and cost-effective way. And a management dashboard where management teams can have real-time comprehensive insights on all loan originations. Moneyfond's digital loan origination solution allows borrowers to have access to credit 24/7 and helps financial institutions acquire customers faster through the online loan application module. The management portal contributes to an improved operational efficiency and faster turnaround time, while the management dashboard with real-time insights on loan origination, onboarding, and portfolio performance facilitates data-driven decisions.
Great, thank you so much for that presentation, for the video. Up next, we will have Prazola Dawa actually providing you more information about the product. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Leonie. I want to also take the time at the beginning of my presentation to thank again MFSA and of course all the participants for being here and listening to us and taking this time. What I will do in the next 10 minutes, I will share my screen and I will dive a little bit more into the detail of those three main modules that we just saw in the video that just played and explain to you what exactly we can achieve and how we can help the financial institutions when they want to transform digitally with our platform and the solution, the Moneyfond digital loan origination solution that we have already developed. So I will start sharing and ask you, of course, for your confirmation, Leonie, if it does work, the screen sharing.
Yes, I can see your screen. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So as we saw in the video, what we are actually offering, let me just go on the really first slide, is for the financial institutions is a digital loan origination platform. It's highly customizable, it's highly personalized. Each institution has their own way of processing loans, has their own set of questions of how they retrieve also the questions that they need to evaluate an applicant in their request. And of course, our solution is fully customizable for each and every one of our customers because of that reason. What we also, and Henny also tapped on this subject, what we also understand now is that we can only go digital if we want to continue being in the market. So really the Moneyfond digital loan origination can help us move away from the paper-based administration, reduce our cost, become more efficient, and mainly provide a better customer experience, as we also have already automatic messaging, for example, integrated in our platform through SMS, WhatsApp, or via email. And all this automatic messaging just creates a better customer experience. And also we can become competitive as we use digital tools that are more cost efficient. We can actually provide better rates, lower interest rates through digital loans to our customers and to the beneficiaries. On that note, I would like to start with sharing a customer experience, which is from our customer in Rwanda, Equity Bank, what was their challenge and why they chose Moneyfond to solve that problem. So Equity Bank in Rwanda wanted to first tap on a new segment of customers, the Rwandan farmers, and also become competitive in their market by bringing low interest rates to those Rwandan farmers through digital loans. This is why they chose the platform, the Moneyfond platform that we completely customized for their needs and according to their requirements and according to their parameters of calculations. They managed to actually lift the productivity internally and become more cost efficient as they were processing the requests that were coming from the Rwandan farmers faster. And of course, the advantage for the borrowers, for the Rwandan farmers, who used to have to walk 2 hours to reach physically a branch, do everything manually on papers, and at the same time receive loans that were from 24 to 30% of interest rate. Well, now they could actually do all that just by the ease of a smartphone, tablet, laptop, or PC that was available for them through their cooperatives. And that way, within 3 to 4 weeks, they already saw their loans at 14% of interest rate disbursed already, and they could use their money. So really an advantage, not only for Equity Bank, but also especially for the beneficiaries. Another customer experience that I would like to share, EduLoan in Zimbabwe. Our customer EduLoan is a microfinance institution that is specializing in educational loans. They were quite impacted by the COVID-19 situation, of course, like a lot of institutions, and they wanted to reach out to more customers, expand their clients, but it was impossible for them to take the route of investing on a new physical presence outside of the capital and in new areas. So this is where Moneyphone came in. We understood what EduLoan wanted to achieve. We personalized exactly how they wanted our solution for them, and they started using this platform in order to be able to give digital loans to even more clients and bring them the possibility to have and achieve their educational goals. And how this solution, which we saw very quickly in the video, is working, and how we customize each and every one of the modules, the main modules of our platform for our customers. So as I call it, the Moneyphone journey always starts with module number 1, the first main module of our solution, which is the online loan application. This is typically what all financial institutions now have on a piece of paper. And this is what we translate and move into the digital world as an online loan application. The strength of our platform, which I see in Latin America or in Asia or in Africa, is that we provide within the same solution the possibility of the self-service application. And I will show you very quickly how this works. So customers, beneficiaries, prospects that want to apply for a loan, have access to technology, know how to use it, can do that on their own. But we understand that we are in remote areas a lot of times, that people are the level of literacy and the access to technology is very low. For that reason, because we are very aware of that, we also use the same exact module for the field officers to apply and originate a digital loan on behalf of a customer and a beneficiary. So I will go out of this presentation very briefly to show you some examples of this first main module. As I said, we give the possibility for self-service as well. So we always create and design a landing page, a registration page for each and every one of our customers, which is different. Here, as you can see on my screen, is an example of the landing page and registration page for the self-service application that we have created for a customer in Jordan. The customer in Jordan is MFW, Microfund for Women, one of the biggest financial institution in the region and in Jordan. And they primarily service their main beneficiaries are women and refugees. So what you first see here on the top right, the solution is of course localized of the local language as well, Arabic. And the visual that we have on this page is completely corresponding to the reality of the market of our customer in Jordan. Here we can see some basic information, some basic fields of information we need to fill in so that the system can open up, and then we land on what used to be paper, now it's going to be an application form online. For comparison reasons, very quickly, I will show you what we have actually designed for Equity Bank. As I just shared on the customer experience, Equity Bank is servicing the Rwandan farmers through our solution. The solution is available in Kenya, Rwanda. The visual and the marketing that has been chosen here is very, very adjusted to the reality of the continent, the market, and the beneficiaries, the farmers. And as you can see very quickly, the fields that are available here to input information, so the system opens up, are very different and less than what the Jordanian customer was requesting. Again, I'm emphasizing the level of flexibility of our system, no limitations technically on how we adjust and we personalize and customize everything. Here I'm changing very quickly to the other landing page that I have as an example, EduLoan. Just shared this client experience from Zimbabwe. They had a very different requirement for their landing page. They want a loan calculator first, and they want to have their basic fields to register so the system can open up and arrive at the application form very differently So let me just very quickly do a little simulation here. I will go on this first page. I will ask for 10,000 that I want to borrow because I would like to open a restaurant. I will need to input my phone number, my name. And this is a good point also where I would like to specify that you see a list of e-wallets that we were requested by this customer to put, which is an information purpose, as MoneyPhone is not a core banking system. We integrate very easily with credit bureaus. We will see that a little bit further down on my slides, my presentation, or with core banking systems. So all the accountancy, the payments, disbursements are being done from the core banking system. And of course, as we integrate, all the information goes back and forth within these systems. For security reasons here, I will say I don't have any wallet. And finally, we have two types of loans that we have implemented in the platform for this customer. I want to open a restaurant. In this case, I would like to have a business loan. So then the right application form will appear once the system will start opening up. We have two things that are happening here. Going to change that in English. And what we see is some basic information that the system gives us, some expectation of how much time I will need to fill in the information for this form, some documentation that would be good to have available to go faster. And as we start, we arrive on what you used to be on paper. We had to write down, take copies of documentation that is required for the evaluation of the application. Here, we just can very easily type everything, take selfies, or attach even files. It's very easy to do and seamless. Because we have limited time, I will go back. Of course, at the end, I will leave my details, and we are always available to do the full demo for every institution that would be interested on a personalized meeting. So going back to our presentation, the first main module that we saw very quickly is the online loan application that can be used as a self-service by the borrowers or by the field officers to originate on behalf of the customer. Now, all these online loan applications, they land into a loan management portal where the information is always available real time. And that helps us not only have a full insight and visibility of what is happening real time in the system, especially helps us with conversion. We can see when somebody registers, we can see how much time they take. We can even send them a message, and if they take too much time to finish their form, to actually ask them if they need help. That contributes also to a better customer experience, gives us competitive advantages. So let's very quickly change again and look at this second module, the loan management portal. This is where we are going to see every single origination that has been created. We don't delete anything. Our solution is cloud-based, and all the data, of course, is the data of our clients, meaning the institutions that are using our platform. So what we will see here, as soon as the list of the originations will appear, we see that September 8, 11:01, just about 2 minutes ago, I started registering. This is my name. These are my details. This is the type of loan that I am requesting, the status in which I am with my application, the amount, and the progress on the 15, 5, 2, 3, whatever pages are needed and required by a customer. We design that without any limitation. And finally, here, we will be able to configure the loan management portal with the workflow of each institution. So here we can really follow who's working on what and assign originations even very quickly to our colleagues. Instead of traveling from desk to desk with papers in our hands, or even sometimes having to send by post, so we lose time, we can now very quickly communicate within our organization with an online system where we have all the information centralized. Filters are available, of course, and we can always download every single application, every single information that exists in the system in Excel and in PDF. Then what I would like to do is, after we very quickly saw, as we only have some minutes left, go back to the presentation and finish with the management dashboard. This is for the management teams, very crucial. They can follow the performance of the loans, the performance within the organization. And what we couldn't do when we were based on paper before is that because we have data, we can now facilitate data-driven decisions. It will be very difficult to do that when we are still based on paper. It helps us optimize processes much faster, when we actually have statistics and full detailed information of what is happening and how we process stuff. The key benefits, I kind of summarized them as I was going through the modules. The borrowers, when they have the self-service possibility, they have 24/7 direct access to your credits. And of course, that helps us to acquire customers faster. The loan officers, they have a centralized way to work and they can be more productive, they can process faster. And the management teams, they have real-time insights in order to be able to take data-driven decisions. We spoke about integrations. We can integrate, whether it is with core banking system, with the credit bureaus, with e-wallets or third-party solutions. That is very easy to integrate via API, and we of course have already all the documentation complete and available. And finally, to summarize, the importance of basically transforming digitally our organization and adopting digital tools is because we want to grow. The blue line here corresponds to an institution that is still doing things paper-based. We can process so many, we can receive so many paper-based applications and we can process so many. We are a little bit limited in our growth. While the green line is the logic of adopting a tool like the Moneyphone digital loan origination platform, and also with a little bit of online marketing, the growth becomes exponential. And this is how we can grow our loan portfolios at a faster pace. And very quickly here, these numbers do come from a real customer. I will not disclose, of course, the customer, but what we help them with is a little bit of online marketing along with the usage of our platform at the beginning of 2021. And as you can see here in February, the result became them receiving in February of 2021, 667 originations. That would be impossible, of course, to receive and process when we do things manually and paper-based. I would like to thank you all for your interest to our solution. And of course, I'm always available. We will share with every one of you our presentation, and I'm always available for personalized meetings and going through the modules and how the solution can be customized for you in more detail in a separate meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for the wonderful information. I can already see there is interest and people that is wanting details. So yes, guys, if you want more information about the application, you are also welcome to contact the MFSA and we can send through the details. Okay, let's have some fun before we get to the serious stuff again. And you know we like to play games. So we are going to play Guess Who. And this is how it works. You are going to guess who is displayed on the screen by completing the puzzle. You only have a few seconds to guess who the person is. And the first person to answer correctly in the chat box will be the winner. The winner must email admin@mfsa.net to redeem their prize. So let's just show you how it works. I'm going to give you an example. So this is just an example. So there's seconds counting for 400. Yes, Take a Lot voucher. Then you will win a Take a Lot voucher, but this is just an example. If you couldn't get that right, we will give you a second picture and then the money will be less. So it will be 300 Rand. Yes. And the ideal answer would be a name and a surname. So the more information you can give me, I think the better. So let's start. Right. Are you ready? Let's go. Guess who is this? For 400 Rand. Okay. We're going for 300. It's not Ozzy Osbourne. For 300 Rand. Let's see. Minister Patel. Moloko, I think you just made it for the 300 Rand Take a Lot voucher. Congratulations, you are the winner. It's the Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Ibrahim Patel. Right, let's go to the next one. Who is this for 400 Rand? So think of a female, think of a regulator. 300 Rand. No, it's not Caster Semenya. A regulator, female, desktop compliance audits. Motsegare is the surname. Okay. NCR CEO, Faith, you win 100 Rand. The winner is Nomsa Motsegare. Faith, congratulations. Right, let's go to the next one. For 400 Rand. President. Oh, so now you would have to tell me who was the first one. So I will go with President as well. So that is fine. You can tell me who the winner is. The winner is Danny. Danny, congratulations. Fastest finger first, I see. Okay, let's go for the last one. Okay. Jabu Enoch, you are correct. Jabu Mbuli, well done. That was very quick, and you are the winner of a 400 Rand voucher. And guys, I'm actually very, very impressed with what you guys know, and I think this was a fun game. Up next, I want to welcome Hans Zachar from TransUnion. He's also going to do a presentation, and we are going to see a video of their company. Right, welcome, Hans.
Thank you.
I think we are going to play a video with your company first. Great.
Yeah,
thank you, guys.
Thanks, Shirley.
At a time when microfinancing is gaining traction, lenders need to score more consumers better. That requires replacing analytical complexity with a single, simplified solution to accelerate credit applications. Fraud prevention, risk evaluation, affordability assessment, and precise, personalized offers are the pillars of profitable lending. This enables you to better understand each consumer and make informed decisions so you can increase profitable microfinance acquisitions. Identify potential fraud at application with enhanced pre-screening and friction-right onboarding. Estimate income using trended credit data income estimators matched against real-time income predictive models. Assess risk with industry scores per loan term product combined with alternative data scores for a holistic customer view. Evaluate ability to pay and determine eligibility for a range of offers, terms, and conditions. Successfully allocate the right product to the right customer at the right price. To learn more about how our data-driven solutions can help you lend more while mitigating risk, visit our website today.
Right, Hans, it's up to you now.
Great, thank you very much. Morning, everyone. Leonie, the screen is up, just to confirm.
Yes, I can see. I can see. Thank you very much.
Great. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to MFSA just to allow us to present today. Just by way of introduction, my name is Hans. I'm the head of solutions for TransUnion Africa. And today we want to introduce our TransUnion Credit Vision Microfinance Suite. So, you know, the way I like to think about TransUnion is we're a local company with international reach. So, you know, we predominantly obviously play as a credit bureau in the credit market. And microfinance has always been close and dear to our hearts in terms of the goals of financial inclusion and deepening, as Henny said. So as solutions, we've been in the basement for about 18 months in terms of developing a solution that is relevant for the microfinance market. So we're very excited to launch this today to give everyone a sense of what it can do. But just before going into that, I think in terms of the goals of developing this, So obviously we've got the global expertise, the ability to bring that IP into a local context. But we also spend a lot of time with complex organizations such as the banking and the retailer world. And it was key for us to say, well, how could we develop a microfinance solution which is incredibly effective in this market segment, which can be quite tough from a data perspective, and simple to use. So as microfinanciers, it's something that can be easily ingested, easily used, and ultimately provide business value. So just to give you a sense of the various components, it was in the video, but just to follow a typical customer process, applications coming in. The first component of the solution is identifying identity fraud. So a lot has been spoken about today in terms of the move to digitization, the move away from manual paper, and more we're looking to identify customers and prevent fraud on a digital channel. But now we also recognize that we're not all digital just yet. So for us, it was about developing a solution that was equally applicable in the bricks and mortars and could plug into that channel, as well as identifying or developing the digital ready solution. So the identity fraud model, we're super excited about it. Just to give you a sense, this is a global solution. So we recognize that fraudsters don't just come from within our borders, they come from outside our borders. And we look at verifying not only the individual, but the device that's coming into our environment so that we can predict fraud. So generally, as you guys know, and if you look across the industry, 30% of your bad debt can be related to fraud alone. So these are people who never intended to pay you. They're really coming in to rip you off, basically. And it's about how do you identify those guys in a very frictionless, behind the scenes way that your customer won't even know that the fraud is actually, or the fraud monitoring is actually taking place. The second module is about income verification. So, for us, this isn't just about meeting the regulatory requirement, but really kind of having a reliable measure of income before we go into the risk assessment space. So we found that typical income estimator models perhaps are less accurate, the low end, which is sometimes where our microfinances segment sits, and the upper end. So we spent a lot of time ingesting various data sources so that we were a lot more accurate and predictive on the top and the lower end. So for the microfinance world, I mean, this is something that you can really trust as the most predictive model of income coming into the process. And then finally, perhaps, or second to last, perhaps the crown jewel is our credit risk assessment. So this is based on our Credit Vision platform. And what we've done is we've spent a lot of time looking for predictive alternative data sets. So without going into a long sort of technical approach, as I said, this is about abstracting all of that from you and having a score that you can rely on. So more to focus perhaps on the outcomes is we've now lifted our scoreable population by 10 million. So we were 23 million. By looking at those alternative data sources, there's now another 10 million customers that can be scored on the platform. So what does that mean? That means that this is scoring a new market segment, right? And just to give you a sense of results, we've analyzed this across the entire market. And if you're looking for a stat, on average, by switching to the score, you can expect a 7% increase in disbursements at the same bad ratio. If you like to look at it the other way and say, well, how much can I reduce my bad debts by? It's about 13% on the corresponding view. So we're super excited about this. I think the testing and where it's been in market has kind of shown those results. So in the world where we're all looking for new and good customers, this is absolutely a quiver an arrow in your quiver to tackle that market. The other thing I'd mention about it is what we're putting together with this concept is the concept of a credit vision link. So rather than you worrying about any alternative data sources, by going onto this platform, you will get the benefits of all the new pipeline of data that we'll ingest to this platform. So this is only going to get better. 7% is pretty good, but you can expect it to get better over time as well. And then finally, our affordability module. So this is about making sure that we don't lose good accounts. So we've gone through the process. A customer may not be able to afford the offer that they've asked for. This is about giving you the ability to make them an alternative offer so that you can kind of secure that customer at something that they can afford. So an end-to-end suite of products which are immediately available to you. So just in terms of, well, how is it available to you? 7% is great, Hans, but how do I actually access it? So we're also very pleased to announce that if you're on the Delta LMS, this is available to you, as an upgrade on that platform. Alternatively, it's available through direct integration through the TransUnion web services and and just by the way, it's also available any batch construct that you might need. So we've also looked at these kind of things to say, well, how can we help customers, help guys like yourselves really get onto this platform as quickly as possible. And finally, this is a very short presentation. I didn't want to spend a lot of time giving you technical details and all the bits and bobs. But very simply, if you would like some more information, and or you want to move to upgrade to this solution, you can absolutely contact Delta directly. So as I said, if you are on the Delta LMS platform, speak to your account manager, or the sort of call center, and the info email is on the list. If you're looking for direct integration and you're looking for a bit of help to say, well, how do I actually plug this into either my LMS or my front end or whatever the case may be? If you're in more of that line, feel free to reach out to Justine. She's also on the call. I've given out her cell phone number, so you're welcome to stalk her, and her email address, which I think she'd probably prefer. So we're very, very keen to engage with you and help you in your integration journey, if that's the route you'd like to look. So just in summary, I'm very excited to launch this product. As I said, it's been a long time in the making for us. I hope that you find interest in it, and those of you engage it, I'm sure you'll see just how simple and how effective and predictive and useful these models are compared to perhaps the older stuff that you might have been using. And thanks for that. Thank you, Leonie. Back across to you.
Great. Thank you so much for the information. And guys, if you have any information that you need from them, please do not hesitate to contact us or contact them directly, and we can give you their information and their details. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the video. We really do appreciate it. Up next, we are going to look at and listen to a presentation from Ethicor. Ethicor is an award-winning international African advocacy, government, and public affairs firm. They specialize in advocacy and lobbying, government affairs, stakeholder management, public policy and legislation, intelligence and strategy, and strategic counseling. The speakers from Ethicor will be Abdul Wahid Patel. He's the founder of Ethicor in 2009, vice president of FIPRA, the advisory board, president of the African Lobbying Union, the chairperson of the South African Lobbying Association. And as you can see, he is a very qualified man. He will be dual presenting together with Wishal. She's the managing director of Ethicor. She joined Ethicor in 2012, the founding member of Quality and Ethics Committee. She's a member of the International Bar Association. And as you can also see, she has a number of qualifications. So we really do look forward to your presentation, and it's over to you. Thank you so much.
We're very excited to presenting to the membership in this digital contact session today. And in line with the theme of this digital contact session, we'll be delivering a masterclass to really give you an insight into the nuts and bolts of what advocacy is, what it looks like, and particularly in the context of the MFSA, why this is important and how we go about doing it to derive value for the membership of the MFSA. Today's journey, we'll talk to you about aligning advocacy with your strategic corporate objectives through the lens of the association. We'll talk about the relevance of advocacy, its concepts and its practices to the microfinance industry within the contemporary body politic of South Africa. And then we'll share some thoughts on the importance of navigating the institutional and political environment in South Africa. Just a brief outline of what we'll cover in today's session. We'll provide an overview of the advocacy landscape. We'll do some scene setting of why advocacy is important. We'll share thoughts around putting advocacy into practice. And as I said earlier, within the South African ecosystem, we'll talk about some advocacy tools and then provide some insights into advocacy and the MFSA at the practical level. The advocacy landscape, I think what's fair to say is that by any global measure, the South African public policy, legislative, regulatory, and political environment is one of the most complex that you can find. Whilst the post-1994 democratic constitutional dispensation has enshrined the notion of participatory democracy, it's important to say that this affords businesses and industry associations, so people like yourselves in your shops and people like any in your member body, fulfill a legitimate role and are afforded a locus standing in shaping and informing decision-making that affects the nuts and bolts of your business. But this decision-making needs to be informed through advocacy that is constructive and responsible. The environment and ecosystem for advocacy is competitive, and this is characterized by a growing number of competing interests vying for the loudest share of the voice. And certainly within the financial services industry more broadly, of which yourselves are part of, it is not the exception. It is in fact the norm, and you can find the same in virtually every other highly regulated economic sector in this country, whether it's a primary sector or a downstream sector somewhere else in the value chain. The effects induced by COVID-19 and the pandemic on the country's already pre-COVID weak economic performance has intensified this competition for share of voice and competing interests in terms of getting the ear and influencing the decision-making process within institutions and policymakers, legislators, and regulators. And so when we talk about what Henny mentioned, being your eyes and your ears, being your voice in the room, really having a seat at the table, I think it's fair to say that organizations, particularly industry associations, but I think even individual businesses who are not at the table and who are not on the horizon and the agenda of their governmental, regulatory, and political stakeholders are invariably on the menu. And that is a term coined very famously by a former US Senator, Elizabeth Warren, and really speaks to how advocacy in democracies and highly capitalized markets like the US is actually something that's not a nice to have. It is a necessity. It is your insurance to protecting and insulating your businesses and your industries from the shocks that will come from uninformed decision-making by lawmakers, by policymakers and regulators, but also an insurance to make sure that there are safeguards proactively on your part to inform that decision-making long before the crisis is even induced. But equally important to say is that just being at the table is not sufficient. It's not an automatic guarantee that you will be impactful and effective in the influence that you're trying to wield in advancing the interests of your businesses and the interests of your sector. A ticket to the game is not enough. Knowing how to play the game, knowing the rules of the game, understanding what tactics, techniques to use is probably more important than being at the table. And in setting the scene for what advocacy then is and what it isn't, based on that notion. In this following module, I think, as I said in my introduction, there's hardly an area of business in this country, and certainly in virtually every other major market in the world, that is not impacted on by governmental decision-making, scrutiny by governmental institutions, and oversight of them, including the resource allocations that they are responsible for dispensing, whether that is tax breaks or tax collections, whether that is sector-based incentives, both financial and otherwise, or whether it is public procurement programs, whether it's public policy or legislation and regulatory reforms, compliance and enforcement, or just merely political risk, uncertainty in uncertain times. The effects of government and the political environment more broadly on business is multifaceted. Influencing your interests and advancing it therefore requires best-in-class advocacy, lobbying, government relations, public affairs tools, strategies, tactics, and techniques. Advocacy is one part of this ecosystem, but it is probably the most important foundation because it is informed by reliable, verifiable intelligence. What is going on in the governmental ecosystem? How does it affect your businesses? And how ought you to respond to it in an evidence-based manner so as to inform decision-making? And once those parameters are defined, then the process of influence and how to engage becomes easier to answer rather than let's just get into a room and meet the minister of X and meet the minister of Y. You can go into the room. Access in South Africa in particular is not a problem. Government is very open to engaging. Dialogue is something that has become underpinned, as I said in my introductory remarks, in the post-1994 democratic dispensation. But simply being in the room is never enough. And so developing and implementing an effective toolbox is critical to driving advocacy that advances your interests, what we call interest advancing advocacy, and building, maintaining, and sustaining this capacity through mandated institutions that represent your interests, like the MFSA, is no longer a capacity that is optional or nice to have in an environment like South Africa. It's actually a necessity for survival. It's essential for sustainability, it's essential for profitability, and also essential for maintaining a competitive advantage over your competition in the market. And looked at through the lens of the MFSA, whilst many players in the financial services ecosystem and industry have common interests, we are also competing for not only share of market in terms of the consumer segment, but we are also competing for a share of government's voice and a share of government's mind as to how regulatory decisions need to be shaped and informed, and what needs to be considered when making those decisions, and how are those juxtaposed when you've got a microfinance industry, but also a banking industry. And I just use those two examples. There are many other analogies in that regard. I'll now hand over to Wisal, who'll talk about advocacy in practice.
If we think about how to apply advocacy and what Wahid was talking about in respect of the toolbox, what is important is to firstly define what we mean by advocacy. And of course, it is a subjective concept, and it is largely also in the South African environment determined by institutional context and imperatives. And so to effectively apply the practice also requires an adherence to some normative standards and to have a specific agenda and approach to guide how we engage in advocacy in order to elevate your voice and share your voice. And then also as it relates to specific issues in the environment that the sector is faced with, to draw attention to those in the interest of advancing the sector's interests and increasing in an increasingly complex and competitive environment. Therefore, we do need a comprehensive approach in order to shape and inform the operating environment, which intersects with the governmental and political institutions, systems, processes, and cultures. And I think what's important is that all advocacy is localized and specific, and there is no cookie cutter approach to this, and it is very specific to the organization, institution, and individual. If we look at the historic origins of advocacy, it is derived from the Latin word advocare, which means to call out for support, and it dates back to the ancient Rome, to ancient Rome and Greece, when well-established orators performed advocates or wrote orations pleading someone's cause. And so the popular phrase, friends, Romans, countrymen, let me lend your ears. In terms of advocacy in practice, it's important to have an agenda on which to build and imprint on government's radar and decision makers, and to also provide solutions to address or resolve the issue that you are wanting to discuss and have attention drawn to, and then also to solicit the support for the action that you may want on both the issue as well as the remedy sought. It does require a concerted amount of coordination and strategic thinking, also information and communication, as well as outreach and mobilization, and all of these should be informed by a strategy and supported by the necessary collateral. If we look at advocacy in a digital age and a network age, we look at advocacy that influences public policy, but that aims to ultimately influence the decision maker's disposition towards the industry, towards members of the MFSA and players within the industry, as well as public discourse and opinion regarding the perception of the industry and industry players, and also their role within the financial ecosystem. And so to raise the public consciousness about a particular issue is part of garnering support and influencing how people view the sector and a particular issue through the lens of the sector. And in this day and age, it's also about effecting social change and therefore impacting on the attitudes, social relationships, and power relationships, which also strengthens democratic spaces. If we look at Module 4, which is essentially understanding the South African advocacy ecosystem, the South African Constitution enshrines also a principle of public participation, and advocacy and other ways of influencing public policies is a legitimate act of political, institutional, and public participation. And the enshrined public participation upholds the right to advocate and petition government, and also therein asserts and upholds South Africa as a constitutional and representative and participatory democracy. And if we look at the context of representatives, members of parliament represents the views of the electorate, while in a participatory democracy, The public is actively involved in decision-making processes such as lawmaking and oversight, and the intention of public participation and involvement in democratic processes is to influence decision-making processes that reflects the will of the people. In South Africa, advocacy is a maze that we do need to navigate, including the ability to navigate institutional processes. But what it also does afford all stakeholders, citizen companies, and associations is access to the development and the implementation of public policies. So lobbyists and advocates, not only lawyers, and all those influencing government represent valid interests. Advocacy also brings to policymakers' attention insights and information to inform better policy choices and policy considerations, also to formulate options and alternatives which may be better catered for and suited for the specific stakeholder audience. It also offers an inclusive policymaking process and provides opportunities for more informed and ultimately better formulated policies. What are the drivers of advocacy? In the absence of understanding the universe which impacts on your environment and actions, advocacy is ineffective. It's also important to guard against what we would consider barking up the wrong tree and pursuing meaningless efforts. And so it's important to engage in advocacy with an understanding of the environment and landscape, the context in which advocacy is embarked on and implemented, the stakeholder universe, who your stakeholder audience is, who the target audience is, and also the mandate of decision makers that may influence policy, legislation, and regulation, and also the roles and responsibilities of political custodians and policymakers. Understanding the political context is always important in the South African environment, and understanding the political context also transcends individuals or personalities, and it is beyond knowing a minister or knowing the political mandate that the minister holds. It's about knowing, identifying, and mapping internal and external policy relevant factors, institutional and political processes which impact on your sector specifically. And importantly, despite the cloud of political instability and unrest, as well as change, or the state of flux, the key determining factors for the MFSA and its members are fundamentally policy, legislation, and regulation, which are the key determinants for your operating environment. And so it's crucial that in respect of key institutional and public participation processes that determine and influence the landscape, that there is a direct impact on members, and so a need and ability to navigate and operate within those processes to remain sustainable and profitable. It's important to also understand where advocacy lives, and when we do engage in advocacy, that we engage at the appropriate levels within the appropriate processes so that we are able to achieve the desired outcomes. If we look at the three organs of state, these are principally where policy and lawmaking takes place, and also influences the operating environment for the MFSA members. And so we need to understand the roles and responsibilities of the executive and parliament and where the judiciary and courts come into play, but also interact with those organs of state to influence and advocate for advancing our interests. If we look at the executive, I won't go into all of these slides in detail. It will be shared with you after the session. Cabinet is responsible for policy making as well as legislation and regulation. And so when it comes to understanding how to engage in advocacy, we first need to understand these institutional processes and the levels at which they operate and interface with our key issues and concerns, and then how we engage with these processes and these stakeholder audiences become important, and to understand when to leverage the opportunities of advocacy in the interest of the sector. Similarly, Parliament also plays a key role in terms of the decision-making around lawmaking and legislation. And so it's important that we use all opportunities at our disposal to leverage the voice of the sector and engage in those processes where we are able to put forward the MFSA's voice, the MFSA's concerns and interests to inform better decision-making, as well as legislation that appropriately caters for the industry and does not curtail the operations of the industry. If we look at the 18 steps in the legislative process, this is just indicative of the process that legislation would follow. So Henny mentioned the debt intervention bill, and this is a similar process which the debt intervention bill followed. And so it's important that we engage in all of the steps of the legislative process so that we have a impact in the environment and considerations that we're also able to influence at every stage. In respect of the bills before Parliament, just to give you an indication, the National Executive and Cabinet prioritizes bills every year. So from an advocacy point of view, it's important to also understand what's in the pipeline, what may be affecting the sector going forward, and where there are key pieces of legislation and regulation that are of a concern or interest to us, and to also then understand the machinery behind Parliament and the extensive amount of bills that they also currently have before them, as indicated in the slide, and to engage with both houses, the National Assembly and National Council of Provinces, to advance our interests, even at the level of the presidency, where we may feel that legislation being contemplated or passed by Parliament is not in the best interest of the sector.
Thank you, Wissal. And so understanding the complexity of the environment that advocacy in the context of the MFSA needs to navigate, tools for that navigation and tools that enable an organization like the MFSA to pierce the heart of decision-making and inform it in a manner that advances the interests of the sector, means that we have to just not focus on relationships. We need to transcend access and relationships, important as they may be for the purposes of leveraging in order to get into the room, around the table, and into the appropriate processes in which we want to secure the MFSA's interests. The question then becomes, when you are in the game, how will you play the game and what will you do? And I think what I said at the beginning around the complexity of the South African political environment means that we always have to be constructive, even when we are being critical. And that speaks to the heart of building reciprocal relationships, even where there is disagreement, but that disagreement needs to be echoed in a manner that it is understood from your vantage point and not merely perceived as pushback against proposals that government decision makers are trying to shove down our throats. And so it becomes around evidence-based engagement, evidence-based advocacy, where you are not just seen to be advancing your interest, you are also understood as bringing real deep expertise about your sector to the table, where you are then assuming the role not just of an influencer, not just of an advocate and not just of a lobbyist, but also as a partner in the decision-making exercise that is trusted and that is of resourcefulness to decision makers. What's critical, as Wissal said, is to be able to systematically, on each and every issue that you are engaging in advocacy around, to systematically and at the granular level map those institutional processes at each stage in the process. And I think Wissal presented 3 or 4 slides that just demonstrated at a kind of 50,000 foot level how intricate these processes are. But on each issue, one needs to engage in that exercise in order to understand where are the trigger points, where are the pressure points, where are the spaces for intervention, and how do you pierce it. And as Wissal had indicated, participation and leveraging your participation in those processes at the appropriate points of intervention is key. If you don't actively participate and claim your share of voice with those stakeholder audiences, you can't claim exclusion by default later on. What that simply means is that when you are participating in a process, not to gutter the process just because the process which hasn't yet ended isn't serving the outcomes or the purposes that you want. You need to be like a dog with a bone between its teeth and see the process through to the end, not to ditch the process. Of course, there are instances where processes may be legally flawed, constitutionally, or in violation of existing legislation. But those are unique circumstances, and there needs to be a litmus test to determine that, which is why mapping out the process on each and every issue is critical, so that you can then determine whether a government decision-making body is embarking on the process in good faith in the manner that it ought to, consistent with prevailing rules or not. Engaging decision makers and engaging in the processes which impact on your sector's legal and social license to operate, in other words, those things that directly determine the license to operate, is obviously key. And opening up those spaces to shape and inform debates, discussions, and discourse beyond the immediacy of an instrument on the table is very important. What we would call the value-added type of advocacy, creating those niche circles and opportunity for dialogue and engagement, even where there is nothing on the table to talk about, but to continuously inculcate what your industry, what your business is doing, that is adding value to the consumer base, that is adding value in an economic context. In those processes, it's often very much the case that an industry or business can say, in the normal course of business, we have realized we're sitting with a challenge. The challenge is the following. We think the solution to the challenge is one of a policy, legislative, regulatory nature, either a new reform or an amendment to an existing statute. And that's a good example of the kind of proactive advocacy where there is nothing on the part of the government itself around those issues for you to advocate on. In other words, you are opening up the governmental process in and of itself by promoting a situation where the government realizes that it needs to take action. And as Wissal has said repetitively, adopting an evidence-based approach, hard facts, but facts that you can justify, whether those are statistics, data, real life, or even anecdotal examples, but things that you can tie your flag to the mast on, and that can be the basis for compelling advocacy. Not fear tactics, not scaremongering, but also not shouting from the rooftops. I think one of the elephants in the room, something we often talk to Henny about, is it's not an automatic guarantee that the one who makes the loudest noise is the one that is going to laugh last and laugh the loudest in terms of influencing decision-making. And here I'm in particularly talking about ventilating in the media, not suggesting that one ought not to or one shouldn't, but if government was influenced through the media, then quite frankly, every single day in this country, we would have different decisions being made by government because the media is so critical of what it does. And so it doesn't automatically follow that by standing on the rooftops and shouting the loudest through the media that you will necessarily influence government decision-making in the way that you would like to. Michelle? And so 4 golden tools to ensure that advocacy supports your strategy. One is to, in fact, make sure that all advocacy is underpinned by your strategy in and of itself. Okay, and that one starts there, not just, well, let's go out and advocate on X, Y, and Z because it sounds like the right thing to do. If it's not advancing your broader organizational goals, there's probably very limited value in doing it. Understanding what the clear objectives of your advocacy are. What do you want to change? How do you want to change it? Who do you need to change it? How do you access them? How do you position your interests on the agenda? And what are the tactics and the solutions and the proposals and the recommendations that you'll actually put on the table to achieve that change? How do you block out peripheral and background noise, whether it's the media, whether it's other third parties, in order to maintain a focus and stay on course with what you define as the pathway to success, not to be distracted because someone else has said, well, we're doing this and we're doing that. It's very often not actually going to serve your interests. And so stay the course by remaining focused and identifying the pathways through which to channel that focus and the assets that support you, resources, whether those are collateral, submissions, other documents that you can then leverage tangibly in the process.
If we look at where this all comes together, and for the MFSA, it is what is the MFSA's advocacy strategy, and that is really about elevating the role of the microfinance sector within the financial sector ecosystem as contributing to financial inclusion, building recognition for the sector as a legitimate role player in responsible consumer credit services, and also then shaping a suitable and sustainable operating and regulatory environment for the MFSA members. Why is this important in terms of the value that at stake? Why is it relevant? In order to support and safeguard fundamentally the policy, legislative, and the regulatory operating environment for the microfinance sector in South Africa and the MFSA members. Why? Because this is fundamentally what determines the members' legal and social license to operate, with the sought outcome of being able to cultivate and support an enabling operating environment for MFSA members and the sector going forward. In terms of practical implementation, as I mentioned, the MFSA advocates to elevate the stature of the sector, also cultivate a greater appreciation and understanding of the sector and its role within the broader ecosystem, but to also highlight issues impacting on the sector and its members, and then to shape and inform a favorable and conducive operating environment. If we look at some examples, recent examples, which is the National Credit Amendment Bill, which is the Debt Intervention Bill, including the Minister of DTIC, who is also responsible for leading that process in terms of making available alternative debt intervention measures and assistive measures to help those who are in financial distress. The MFSA participated in that and provided alternative considerations to both the minister and the department in respect of what is another avenue for consideration and what the MFSA's members cannot withstand in terms of intervention as it relates to the consumer credit market. Also, the parliamentary inquiry into transformation. As Henny said, this is an ongoing issue, an ongoing debate that will continue. and then also to make heard the voice of the industry during the COVID-19 pandemic of a regulatory nature in terms of ensuring the economic activity of the MFSA members during the state of declared national disaster, and then also National Treasury's policy on financial inclusion, as well as the review of credit life insurance regulations, and then the upcoming review of the rates and fees. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wahid and Rochelle. A massive amount of information on a complex subject in a very quick time. Thank you for that. Leonie, I'm under your hand. We are doing questions and answers.
Yes, Eddie, we are question and answer session.
Okay, so from where I sit, happy to hear questions. People post the questions in the chat box, and we take them. Is that correct, Leonie?
Yes, Annie, that's correct.
Okay. So at this point, is there any questions which people would like to pose to us, or comments, both for clarity or if there's confusion that we can deal with those? And having said that, I do get lots of personal calls on these matters, and I'm very happy to take those, and we'll continue to take those.
Henny, perhaps if I can ask a question, if that is fine.
Well, you know, your performance appraisal is coming up, so it's fine.
So, Henny, I basically want to ask a question on behalf of our members is, what can our members do in order to enhance our advocacy position currently? How can they contribute to a more positive advocacy role that we are playing?
Okay, so I'm going to lead out with the question, and then please, the other guys must please come in and add or take away from that. I'm talking to Parky and Rochelle as well. The fickleness of what we're dealing with as an industry, and where I look back, is the first thing, and that's it sounds a little bit negative, but understand the rules, play by the rules, and make sure that your clients experience the engagement with yourself as a positive one. The way in which messages get through the system and cause sometimes havoc and concerns is often because of a contact on the ground with something out into the political sphere. The second thing I think which is crucial, and I cannot say anything else than that, is that you actually belong to an association like ourselves and bring your influence and your information to bear. I said we listen, we honestly listen. And the information we get from you assists us in our process when we engaging at the many tables, and some tables are very focused, like the ones that Rochelle and Wahid has been talking on, and other tables is really about being there. And I thought, Leonie, I need to give people just examples of the things that's playing out. We get contacted by the World Bank to participate in a survey. Now, for us to meaningfully participate in that survey, we have to engage with members and form impressions, which we do by socializing with our members. That's one thing that happens. And that report then goes global. The NCR does interviews with people, and we contribute to that, and it finds its way into a report, which in turn then is positioned one way or another for the review of the rates and fees. On the other side, And you've been part of those. PhD students who publish locally and internationally ask questions. And all of that is part of a fruit salad of things that's going out there. That picture which Rochelle had of the maze, that's how I experience these things. You really need to navigate and plot your way all the time. And the members are key. Members who blatantly disregard the law, and we often find that members like that, when things go wrong, they're either in the media or they run to us or they go directly into the structures, and then it actually boomerangs even worse. That's my kickoff response. Wahid, Rochelle, would you like to add? And Parky in the background is obviously also welcome. I think I need to start with Etikor, your take to the question.
Thanks. Thanks, Eni. I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. I think from a kind of practitioner's point and kind of a point of view of, being advisors to the MFSA for a number of years now, I would just make the following kind of general but also specific in relation to the type of industry that you are in. The following remarks. I think there's a lot that members can do to answer Leonie's question, to further enhance the MFSA's advocacy. And obviously at the level that we play, which is that interface, supporting that interface with government institutions, whether it's departments, ministries, parliamentary committees, regulators, political parties, whether it's making submissions on decision-making processes, either through formal processes that government calls for input on, or processes that we are at the forefront of inducing because we ask government to take up the cudgels on an issue. I think members can firstly bring a lot of value through their real life experience of what happens in their businesses on the ground, where the MFSA is representing the interests of the members in a process to make pleadings to government decision makers. I accept when I say that members are all busy running their businesses, keeping their customers happy. But I think slightly below the level of the mandate of the association, I think, if an association advocacy mandate is going to be effective, then the effectiveness needs to be derived by some degree of activism in legitimizing that mandate, in making sure that the mandate meets the needs of its members, in how it's executed by the association. And this doesn't have to be exhaustive participation by members. It can simply be knowledgeable about what's in a paper that's going to government. And, I would say there's practical things. Members don't have to necessarily have the time to read the paper, but firstly to know that this is what's on the go. Okay, I may not have the time to read a 50-page or however many pages submission, but let me pick up the phone and let me have a quick discussion with Henny about the topic or whoever the case may be. And I'm just using very basic examples. I understand that these are busy times that we live in, but I think that is very, very important because we don't want to be in the business of making assumptions when we are conveying things to government, but we also want to ensure that the things we convey are poignant, that they carry weight and substance. And I think members bring that weightiness to the pleadings that we make. The other thing that I would say is very important is that we need to also be able to rely on members. From time to time, it's all well and good that Henny is talking to everyone under the sun, making decisions about things that affect the microfinance sector. But sometimes there's something to be said for, let me pull this member into this meeting with this government stakeholder. And don't listen to me, Henny. Listen for 5 minutes or whatever amount of time, how this affected business X, Y, and Z. It's not something that one necessarily has to do all the time, but there is something to be said for that and what that means for enhancing advocacy further. I think the third area that members can play a very valuable role because they are on the ground dealing with the consumers, providing the services to the market, is to stress test whether what we are saying to government is in fact good enough. And will it make an impact? And how can the solutions that we propose to government actually be workable if government agrees with what we are saying? And I think members can inform that process and that thinking in a very rich way.
I think the other thing that's important is, you know, the MFSA, like all organizations, we don't know what we don't know. So if members aren't also going to approach the MFSA and tell Hini that this is the issue that they are grappling with, this is a concern that they have that's prevalent in their operating environment, or as it relates to the compliance issue, or the need to adhere to certain regulations and implement legislation. If there's a practical concern and consideration that the MFSA needs to know about that, and you know, where it is in the interest of advancing the industry's agenda more broadly, you know, to take up those issues in the appropriate way through the appropriate processes and channels to effect the necessary change in order to safeguard and also to enable the sector to thrive going forward.
Yeah, I think if I summarize in terms of the responses to your question, Leonie, first of all, it's critical that members educate themselves, and this is what we do when we sit here, about this world and what the issues are. I think it's crucial. Secondly, that in that context, we understand and work at what is critical to us, and where nobody else is going to do the work for us, that we know that. What's the areas of our domain, our jurisdiction, as it were. And certainly the inputs we can get from the ground. Many people don't want to face regulators. They don't want to face politicians. The information to us is crucial. And then I think the other thing which is very important is that when there's something that affects all of us, that we actually for a moment put our competitive gloves aside and we join around that particular issue so that we can compete on a fair footwork. And really the members and how they conduct themselves at the coalface and how they share their experiences, which they do when you ask them, is crucial. And they should not be humble in their achievements. I want to say that. That's the thing. People don't talk about the achievements because there's worry that the competition is going to do the same. I really think that the market speaks louder than we can speak on many issues. And if you've got a great idea or a great solution or a great problem, let's look at it from that perspective and solve it in the interest of everybody, ultimately for the system and for the country. Can I check? I'm worried about the time. Pocky, is there anything you would like to add in and bringing? I don't see more questions coming, so I'm going to wrap up, really.
All right.
Give everybody a last word. Pocky, you've set a very nice scene this morning. Thank you for that. Is there anything you would like to add or ask to the members?
Yes, I think, thanks, Zeni. Although sometimes when we do the presentations, it looks complicated, but just to the members, some of the things that you find that we hear, you find the politicians when they're in their offices, after they've been fired or now they're retired, they're sitting at home, you sit with them and say, if I knew this when I was still a minister, but when I was a minister, why didn't you guys tell us? Why? And so on and so on. Sometimes it's right because when they're minister, they are in the blue lights, they are always high speed across the road and whatever, always in these meetings. So I think to be fair to them sometimes, to not necessarily ministers, also the people in high positions at the time. I mean, if you are a CEO of a bank. You always invited to stadium. You don't sit with the people in the stands. You sit in the suite surrounded by helpers. So you don't, sometimes they lose touch. So talking to them, it is very important. A good example, we had a session with the National Credit Regulator and her team. One of the things that also showed is that we've got a national regulator, but none of our members could recognize her face. It shows how far are we from, or the distance. We could recognize the president, but we could not recognize the face of our Minister of Trade and Industry. So the two people that we report to, that our regulator minister, we don't know them. So it shows the length where we are. But we had a lot of court cases. So it means we were using the judges and ministries between us. There's something that we need to do in terms of making sure that the industry is a nice place to work in. Other things that we experience a lot of painful things as the members that sometimes I feel are not necessary. We get investigations, desktop investigation. Now there is COVID. Luckily, COVID helps because you don't get uninvited guests in your offices. So maybe when COVID goes, they are going to start visiting you. So now it's just a desktop that is an irritation. Now you see a non-registered member next to you and there's nothing we can do, taking you at length and so on. You get the tribunals. All of these things are not, they create that animosity. The business is no more fun. So but surprisingly, when we had a meeting with the National Credit Regulator, the enforcement people, they say they want to work together with MFSA. Let's have coffee, let's talk about it. So I think these are the things that are needed so that life can be better. So if I summarize, I think the politicians, we don't have to talk to them when they are retired, when they have time. Let's talk to them when they still have influence. National Credit Regulator, we talk to her, she says he doesn't know the harassment or that our members are experiencing. He doesn't know what we're talking about. So I'm just saying those are the things that we need to tell them while they're still. We don't want to talk to the regulator when she's retired sitting in the village. Let's talk to her now so that there can be rectifications. Coming to what Ethico mentioned, it's always good to go with examples because if we see them just talk and talk, they said, what are you talking about? We need to show the impact that they are having, people that are closing their offices, the types of attitude that some of the law enforcers are having. If somebody has a cell phone in the branch, why don't you take a video? And then we go with the video. I'm just saying those are the things that can be helpful to be able to implement what you are talking about. Okay, thanks, Henny. I think that's the summary that I have.
Thank you, Pocky. Is there got a final word from your side?
Well, thank you very much, Henny. I just want to say that it's difficult to demystify advocacy in a detailed way in such a short period of time. But I hope we've provided a snapshot, a window into the world of advocacy from the perspective of the MFSA as an industry association that engages in advocacy for the purposes of advancing the interests of its members. And advocacy as a space is something that is evolving constantly. And I would encourage the MFSA to engage in the subject matter and different facets of the subject matter as you are doing today on an ongoing basis. It's important for developing institutional memory, institutional learnings and insights, including from other parts of the world. And whilst, Wissal made the point that, it's not about replicating a cookie cutter approach. That never works. But we learn from the learning of others as well.
Absolutely agree with all of that. Thank you for sharing and being willing to come to the table, as it were, on the subject. The puzzle changes all the time, and in a way, it's very exciting, and in another way, it's also quite puzzling. So only on that note, from my side, thank you for the members. Thank you for everybody who's worked and sat through the day. Highly appreciate it. And it's back to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Parky. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, Hini, for the presentations. We really do appreciate it. We are now going to the end of our session, and we just want you to complete our survey. The link is over there. If you can please fill it in, click on the link and complete the survey. Thank you very much. Once again, want to thank all of our sponsors for contributing towards the day and towards the event. Our sponsors are ACPAS, AlpsI, it's NewPay, it's Delta IT, it's Experian, Kepler, Moneyphone, Micromax, SureCard, SureSystems, Universal, and TransUnion. We really do appreciate your support. Yes, I think it was a good and successful day. Thank you very much for the information sheet, and we do look forward to the next session, which is our digital compliance session in September. So remember to save the date. I think it's the 16th of September, and we'll see you then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having this conversation with us and for joining us. Right. Thank you. Bye-bye.